When the Canucks miss the playoffs again.
When Jim Benning trades away all our picks.
When Goldalden is scratched for the third game in a row. C4 is there. With Sedin-like vision, Horvat's work ethic, and Petey's electric personality. Here comes the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Powered by Overtime Media.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. This is Chris at Layforce, joined virtually by Matt Lee at Mattlee_61. Anna Forsyth has gone home to the home country. I don't exactly know when she gets back to this side of the pond. And Adam Ovenel Carter, as always, working like a dog. So if you're looking for them, you're going to have to find them on Twitter. It is Adam Ovenel Carter at AdamFOC, and then Anna's A Forsyth03.
You might say Anna sounds like she's in London.
Oh, we're looking for the opportunity to drop that.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. I mean, we're making this happen. This is like unusual. I can't remember the last time that we actually got together to record a episode like during the week of Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think this is one of those rare times where Christmas doesn't necessarily fall on the Monday. So I think this is one of those rare times where we're able to provide the podcast during the holiday season.
Yeah. You all ready? Because Christmas is fast approaching. This episode will go live on Christmas Eve, so you got
right. So I'll tell you this. It is December 23rd, and I got my Christmas shopping started, Chris, on Friday, December 20th.
Oh, cool.
And I will say it again and again, Amazon Prime is the best and worst thing to happen to humanity.
How many times are you clicking like same day, Prime?
I'm clicking the same day shipping. I signed up for an Amazon Prime when I I kind of needed it to ensure that it would arrive before Christmas. But I was buying things I didn't even need to buy.
Oh, no doubt. Then they have the add-on items where you're like, oh, this is a good deal. I kind of need this one. Oh,
yeah,
damn,
people package this one with this other stuff that you don't need. I'm like,
$20 worth of stuff. It's like going to Costco.
It is exactly like going to Costco. It is like the equivalent of putting all the granola bars and the fruit bars by the checkout aisle. Like it's like, sure, I'll need 100 granola bars. That is the 2019 equivalent of shopping at Costco.
Speaking of Costco, I went to Costco this weekend.
Costco hot dog?
No, I did not have a Costco hot dog. See, the weight loss journey sort of prevents the hot dog consumption. The hot dog itself isn't bad. It's the bun around it that drives the points.
You think so?
Well, no, I know so. I mean,
you think the bun is the best part of the Costco hot dog?
No. I'm saying it's not the bun that is the best part. It's that on this journey, the bun is what costs me the most points.
Really? I thought It was the salty, fatty, meaty tube that was between the bun.
As Weight Watchers, it's like negative against carbs and sugars. So it's, as a result, anything with carbs and sugars, the points are way up. And it's gone to the point where I evaluate everything that I consume as like, is that worth the points that I'm going to spend?
Right.
And even taking it easy in the holiday season, I'm still trying to make smart decisions. Anyhow, people didn't actually, I think, want to tune in for our Christmas episode to hear me talk about Costco.
Can I quickly bring up, though, we were supposed to bring this stuff up off the top of the show, but a thank you once again to those who showed up for our live show last Monday.
Oh, yes. That was fun time. We need to do that more.
Yeah, brought to you by Jaeger's, sort of on that edge of Gastown area. Hoping to do more in 2020 and hoping to have more people show up in 2020 as well.
What, 3 days notice wasn't enough to advertise?
So we didn't really mention this on the podcast, but Jaeger's kindly accommodating the back room for us and pushing the Magic the Gathering to the front of the room.
They had a solid crowd. The Magic the Gathering
did have a solid crowd, but a lot of them looked like they were Canucks bloggers who lived in their parents' basement.
Oh, like me?
Yes, but you don't live in your parents' basement.
No, I just podcast from the den in my condo.
Got it.
Story. Yeah. But we are going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks and how they've done since that live episode as they are going into the holidays. There's thoughts on first and foremost, the non-call that unfortunately has resulted in a Joshua departure for 2
Yep.
to 3 months.
Yep.
Imagine you'll want to talk a little bit about the World Junior Hockey Tournament that starts.
We could talk
in
about the
only a
World
couple
Juniors.
days'
We'll talk a little bit about Jake Virtanen as well. He seems to be the flavor of the week, if you will.
All that and more. But before we jump in to a rewind, let's talk a little bit about our friends over at Vivid Seats. Now, let's say you need to get tickets for that game on Saturday. I believe the Kings are in town, and you were hoping that they were going to, show up in your stocking under the tree, and neither Santa nor others come through and deliver. Well, you may need to go and grab yourself a pair of tickets, and we can't, not the whole double negative recommend Vivid Seats. I mean, they're the top source of tickets for the Canucks games, pretty much any event you want to go to. And if you download that Vivid Seats app, whether it be in the App Store or Google Play, you can use it to sort for price or look for seats in a particular section, a particular row. I mean, they've got it all. And on top of that, they've got a loyalty program that's going to allow you to earn Vivid Seats rewards. Now, every purchase, it's backed by 100% buyer guarantee, and you can get in things from concert tickets to event tickets, sports tickets, you name it. If they're available, Vivid Seats has it. So, I encourage you, download that app, go to the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and when it's actually time to buy, if you happen to be a new user, make sure you enter the promo code OVERTIME at checkout to receive a discount of up to $100. Well, the Vancouver Canucks, if we were to sort of quickly rewind, had themselves I would suggest it was like an up and down week, and yet, if we consider when we were recording our last episode and how they did, they ultimately got 4 out of 6 possible points. So arguably you could say they did really well. But didn't that Saturday game against the Penguins kind of feel like a must-win statement style of game? Like it seems odd that that game needed to be a win considering they got the 2 points against Vegas.
Oh, I agree. And, judging by how the Vancouver Canucks came out of the gate in that game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday, Chris, I mean, you'd think that they were thinking themselves that it was a must-win game. I mean, they had, extended 5-on-3s on Saturday night, and they came out pretty aggressive in that game. I think they knew that was a game that they had to win, especially after, dropping a disappointing game against the Montreal Canadiens earlier in the week, for example. They wanted those 2 points on Saturday night for sure.
Yeah. The other thing that we were talking about on that episode as which goaltender was going to get themselves the start in the crease.
Right.
And we ultimately thought that there would be an opportunity to mix it up. And did that mix up happen?
No,
not so much. Are you surprised?
A little bit. I mean, I hypothesized more than any of you guys that it was going to be Michael DiPietro getting at least one of those games, maybe that Montreal game, and of course it was Jacob Markstrom starting all 3 last week. Now that we're seeing Thatcher Demko, starting to take a little bit more of a presence on the practice ice, getting a little bit of a skate in, maybe we don't see Michael DiPietro at all.
Well, we have the game tonight. So we're recording here in the afternoon on the 23rd. So the Canucks will be playing the Oilers, and you'll be listening to this podcast knowing the result of the game. But Markstrom's going to get the start.
For sure. And then the Canucks have 5 days off until the next game. At that point, you're starting to... Well, 4. I mean, at that point, you're starting to hypothesize that maybe Thatcher Demko is inching closer and closer to the lineup. Yeah. And by then, obviously, there's enough time for Jacob Markstrom to get both games if they wanted to do Markstrom on both the Saturday and the Sunday.
Well, and that's what I was going to allude to, is that you have LA at home on Saturday, and then you fly off to Calgary for a slightly earlier game against the Flames on the Sunday. So if there was thought with the quick return around that you want to give Markstrom a rest, that might be it. But he just had 4 days off. And if we then look sort of moving ahead, the Canucks then have an additional 2 nights off, actually 3 altogether, before they play the Blackhawks back here at home on the 2nd. So it's not as if Markstrom would be overworked. I mean, actually, just looking ahead into January, I mean, the Vancouver Canucks don't have a quick turnaround, really at all. I mean, they do go on to the road, heading out east with some of those phenomenal, matinees where we get the 10 a.m. start on a Sunday or Saturday in Buffalo. And then there is, I guess, that quick turnaround to Minnesota the Sunday for another 1 p.m.
But by then you anticipate Demko is back in the lineup by then. Now, I mean, let me preface this by saying, I think the Canucks are clearly making sure that Thatcher Demko is 110%, given that it's his second documented concussion in as many years. But that said, the fact that we're starting to see Thatcher Demko on the ice, taking some turns, you got to think that he will be back by 2020.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm not of
again
the
slow
belief you
rolling it
rush
for sure, but I don't think they're in a rush. But all signs are pointing that Markstrom is feeling fresh enough that he can carry the load until Thatcher Demko returns, and that there's not a huge, overwhelming desire to get Michael DiPietro involved in any games that he doesn't have to be in.
Agreed. The other thing that sort of occurred over the course of the week is the emergence of Shotgun Jake. I mean,
yeah.
We should concede he comes and goes. I mean, we've sort of seen that sort of inconsistent performance from Jake, over the last maybe year or year and a half. But over the past week, he seemed to start to figure his game out consistently. And we even had an interview in After Hours on Saturday where we got to see a little bit more of his personality, and he had a little bit of fun with it. But is this Jake? Like, should we now expect that, hey, we're going to see more of him? I mean, he's got line mates that he seems to really gel with. Mm-hmm. He's figured out his sort of role within the team and what he is supposed to do to contribute. And he suddenly realized that he can actually play with power to the net. That's where he's always seems to have had success, but he shies away from that. I ask you, is this the Jake we now know we will see, or is this just here's the Jake we wish we had, a week from now or 2 weeks from now?
So I'll begin the Jake conversation by sort of at least mentioning that I've heard this anecdotally, but I've heard that his 10 goals right now that he's got so far halfway through the season, if you will, he had 9 goals at this time last year. He literally only has one more goal this year than he did at the same time last season. And last season he finished with, I believe it was 15 goals. So while Jake is clearly performing at a 20-goal pace, Chris, it is important to at least temper the expectations that Jake Virtanen is still a early 20-year-old player who has had a lengthy bout of inconsistencies over his career thus far. And there could be every single possibility that Jake Virtanen's game does fall off a cliff. Now, that said, you've made some good points that Jake Virtanen is clearly playing with a little bit more confidence than he's used to. He's playing with more consistent line mates than he's used to as well. There is definitely a noticeable swagger, and I hate using that word sometimes, Chris, but there's definitely a noticeable swagger about Jake's game that he's playing with a little bit more confidence than what we've seen from him in the past. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. And that's sort of where, I start to wonder, has Jake figured out his game sort of day in, day out, night in, night out? He does seem to be carrying that confidence that he would have in spurts, but then somehow lose. And then we would get bad Jake where, Travis Green would have him in the doghouse faster than Louis Eriksson could fall asleep on the plane, right? Like, that's the change that I'm seeing now. Now, as to whether or not that, goes to your point, the wheels falling off the bus and old Jake reappearing, time will tell, but I'm not as, or I don't lack that confidence just because I do see him playing with something that he hasn't always had.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it does bear mentioning this. Jake Virtanen, to start the year, Chris, he was playing about 9 to 10 minutes a night. On Saturday night against Pittsburgh Penguins, he played almost 16 minutes. In 2 games before that against Montreal in that losing effort, he played 16 and a half. Those 2 are the most time on ice he's played in the entire 37-game season that he's played.
Well, and that's indicative of Travis Green, showing trust, not only in him, but I think his line. That's I actually think it would be remiss for us not to mention that it's his line that's I think what's driving this, and whether it's the line mates that allow him to figure out that part of his game, identifying what he needs to actually do, because it's easy for us here, being the podcasters who are, to look on watch something on TV and say, this is what's missing, or here's what is not there. It's another thing to actually be able to identify it, when you're on the ice and you're actually playing in a game situation. Jake seems to have figured that out.
So do you think Jake Virtanen, Chris, figures out those consistencies to his game that will allow him to crack the 20-goal barrier for the first time in his career? Or are you still trying to temper expectations a little bit on him?
Well, okay, I'm going to temper expectations, and that's not because I'm being negative on Jake. I just look at the Vancouver Canucks as they're constructed right now and do wonder if his current production is sustainable, considering sort of his place within the team. Now, if Jake cracks that 20-goal plateau, in my mind, that's indicative of a Vancouver Canucks team that's making the playoffs. Because if you're getting that level of production from your essentially third line, you're getting the production that's been missing for the how many few seasons, 3 or 4 past seasons. So even if the first line or the second line were to have some form of productivity cut, and I'm not going to say we've seen it, but we're not seeing Brock and Petey produce at the pace that they have together. It's nice to see that you have a third line that is now potting some goals, and having Rooster there, his return is phenomenal.
Oh, I think it's certainly injecting a little bit of life into Virtanen's game. And I think you alluded to this previously, is that you're starting to see a lot more chemistry taking place between Adam Gaudette and Jake Virtanen. I mean, you look real down the line here, Chris, and you can see those two being a formidable pair on that second, third line sort of area for years to come.
Definitely. And maybe it's too early for us to start having this conversation, but Jake Virtanen is an RFA at the end of the season. He's
not too early. Let's have this conversation.
On a contract that has him at 1.25. The Vancouver Canucks don't have a whole lot of room, going into next season. Now you could say, well, Chris, they have a ton of room. Well, yeah, you have Tanev, who's technically coming off the books. If you don't re-sign Tanev, you need to find an equivalent replacement. Troy Stecher is an RFA. He's currently at like 2.3. So Stecher, in my mind, gets a raise whether he, sort of deserves it or not. That's assuming you keep him. And then Fattenberg is the other, but Fattenberg's, at chump change.
Jag.
And then you have, Adam Gaudette, Zach McEwen also sort of at the chump change level.
Not to mention Pettersson and Hughes coming off their entry-level deals a year from now as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that trickle-down effect. But, with all that being said, and then we forgot, Jacob Markstrom, presuming he comes back.
We've the big Swedish elephant in the room.
How much, one, does Jake deserve comparably? And two, can the Canucks afford it? Like, if there is a little bit of worry for me, it's that Jake has finally turned a corner and the Vancouver Canucks don't have the money to give him the flexibility to keep him. Or by keeping him, there's that trickle effect of something they need to do. I think ideally, Louis Eriksson's contract disappears.
Well, of course, in an ideal world, it disappears, but look, we can't forecast that as well.
Yeah. So
I'll say this:
Canucks, and they have between sort of this moment and next year, without an adjustment in the cap, they only have about 6-7 million to play with between a Markstrom, a Tanev, and then a Troy Stecher, Tyler Mott. Like, there are going to be players that need to fill those gaps. So, can they afford Jake?
Okay, so let's start the Jake Virtanen discussion by saying, ever since Jake Virtanen was drafted in 2014, you know this, Chris, better than most people, the Canucks have sunk so much time and energy into Jake Virtanen's development. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think there is a mutual agreement on both sides to get a deal done. Do the Canucks owe it to Jake, given his early success this season, to reward him with at least something beyond a 1-year show-me contract?
I don't believe so. I think I would.
Would you have a problem with 2 years?
Oh, no. I mean, 2 years at a reasonable number, but I would prefer the show me. I think the worry I have with the show me, though, and the show me is because I want to see the consistency. It's then we get into 21, 22. We start to see even more players enter restricted free agency. Not again the end of the world. A Tanner Pearson, a Brandon Sutter, the Vancouver Canucks can hopefully overcome that type of issue. A Jordy Ben, but that's also when Quinn Hughes is now going to get himself a solid raise, and as you had mentioned earlier, PD2. So at some point in time, the Vancouver Canucks will need cash. But I guess in the next instance, it would be a phenomenal problem if they had that wealth of riches, where they have a Jake Virtanen who is producing at such a level that they can't afford to keep him. But I would hope that, Jim Benning then would be smart to actually wheel and deal to get something for him. I don't have that level of confidence.
So how about this? Would you be okay with Jake at 2 years at $2.5 million per?
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. I mean, as far as the placement within the team, I mean, that actually fits him in the position that he is currently in. I mean, it's a slight raise, which I think he would deserve. Comparably in the market, I think it's also a reasonable number. We should also mention as well, I mean, Jake is a restricted free agent, and while he is arbitration eligible, it's not like I think anyone's going to come knocking on the Canucks door with an offer sheet.
Well, I think if someone comes knocking on the door with an offer sheet, the Canucks would be willing to entertain that offer sheet.
Oh, yeah, no, that's why I don't think anyone comes. I don't think anyone would come and offer that level of compensation up for a Jake Virtanen to prevent the Vancouver Canucks from actually signing or matching, and then that just does the work for them.
The other elephant in the room here, Chris, is let's say the Canucks manage to find a way to keep Jacob Markstrom and Thatcher Demko in expansion. Jake Virtanen looks very attractive if you're the Seattle team looking to pick up a young player who you can help build around or have part of your team's future. If the Canucks don't get Jake Virtanen signed and protected, there's a very real possibility that he could be the one scooped up by Seattle.
Well, would you, as a Vancouver Canucks organization, protect him? If you we don't know what the parameters of the expansion draft, will be, but does he take a protected spot when you may have others that you potentially lose? We don't. Again, maybe that's too far ahead. I don't know if the Canucks would protect him.
Well, I mean, again, without getting too much into the nitty gritty of the expansion draft, it's quite clear that the, let's say, top 3 candidates to get taken by Seattle from the Vancouver Canucks are in no order: one of Thatcher Demko or Jacob Markstrom, one of Virtanen, and one of Troy Stecher.
Presuming Stetcher's still a Vancouver Canuck.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, presuming they all are, but I think of the 3, Troy Stecher is probably most at risk at either no longer being a Vancouver Canuck due to negotiation or potentially a trade. But yeah, I would not disagree with those 3.
And to be honest with you, I'd kind of be most hesitant to lose Virtanen in expansion at this point.
Well, based on recency, no doubt.
Based on recency, but it's the fact that you've got 2 quality goaltenders. You have to lose one. I mean, no disrespect to either Thatcher Demko or Jacob Markstrom, but losing one doesn't devalue the other. And Troy Stecher is kind of a square peg in a round hole in the Canucks lineup these days.
Mm-hmm.
At best he's at best a top 4 defenseman, and at worst a 7th guy.
Yeah, I mean, word has it that he hasn't been in Travis's good graces, which also doesn't bode well from Troy from Richmond. I have to ask you this, Matt. If, let's say, hypothetically, Virtanen got scooped up in the expansion draft, what does that mean to the Vancouver Canucks draft year, where they traded McCann, who's now actually playing really well in Pittsburgh, and ultimately lose Virtanen through expansion? Is that a miss on the part of Canucks development? Is it a miss on the part of Canucks scouting staff, or is it just they rolled the dice twice and sometimes the dice come up snake eyes?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't reflect well on Jim Benning's first year as general manager, but That was exactly it, Chris. It was his first year as general manager. I think he had been on the job for maybe 2 months before that. Not a whole lot of time to sort of assert himself into that draft. I think he was going by a lot of what the current scouts at the time had sort of suggested. I'm not saying I'm willing to give him a mulligan on 2014 if Virtanen gets scooped up, but it certainly doesn't look great in terms of his best draft classes that Jim Benning has done for the Vancouver Canucks.
Fair enough. Before we take ourselves a break, why don't you tell me a little bit about that fantastic publication called The Athletic?
Well, Chris, today's show is sponsored by The Athletic, and a lot of Canuck fans, you know about this. Harman Dayal, Thomas Strands. Occasionally you see Wyatt Arndt in there as well. The Athletic is a subscription-based sports news site for real fans, and their in-depth coverage from local writers on every team, including your Vancouver Canucks, gives you all the insight you need to know. You get a whole lot more than just that insight, though. You get personalized feeds of stories, live Q&As, the podcasts, and more. We're starting to see Rick Dollywall showing up on The Athletic now for the Vancouver Canucks. You also have the Athletic app, so you can pick your favorite teams, customize it, get all of that insight and analysis at your very fingertips. It is an amazing app. And if you're ready to get started, Chris, you can get 40% off a yearly subscription by going to theathletic.com/overtime. That's theathletic.com/overtime.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So let's head into your wheelhouse and start talking a little bit about the future of the Vancouver Canucks. You had mentioned in the rundown here as to the potential of Tristan Jarry and Ilya Samsonov and their improved play as allowing the Vancouver Canucks crease to be sort of kept intact. Can you expand on that?
Okay, so we obviously didn't see too much of Tristan Jarry on Saturday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chris, but we did see Matt Murray. And while Matt Murray didn't lose the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins, he certainly didn't help them get close to winning it. And I would kind of argue Matt Murray has been pretty so-so for a guy who's already got a Stanley Cup to his name. And you look down where Washington, D.C. is and the Capitals, Ilya Samsonov is playing pretty well as well. Braden Holtby is getting up there in age. He's on a $6.15 million contract through next season. There's a very real possibility that both Braden Holtby, Chris, and Matt Murray, Marc-Andre Fleury themselves and become at least candidates to get picked up by that Seattle franchise. So if you're the Seattle franchise, let me put it to you this way. If you have the pick between Jacob Markstrom at an unforeseen salary at this point because he's an impending UFA, if you have a pick between Markstrom, Braden Holtby, and Matt Murray, which one are you going to pick? The guy that has no Stanley Cup to his name, or either the guy that does have Stanley Cups to their name?
Well, so the Stanley Cup with the name is what I would go after, but then from a perspective of recency, just because you have a cup doesn't necessarily mean you still can play the game.
But is that not what the Vegas Golden Knights sort of thought to themselves when picking Marc-Andre Fleury?
Well, sure, but is it not fair to say that Pittsburgh also, went to George McPhee and said, what would it take to take Maff off of our hands? Like, I'm not necessarily thinking that Vegas is like, oh, Marc-Andre was our guy. Maybe that's what they did. And they then, fleeced the league as we saw that they did. But if I am Seattle and ultimately I'm now on the clock, I got to go pick players. I might have already had these same conversations. Hey, we can maybe do you a solid too to help our team, and you can help us. So, look at Marc-Andre Fleury. He lost his job in Pittsburgh. His contract had Louis Eriksson potential to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, Vegas did them a significant solid. What Pittsburgh did not believe was that Fleury still had the game, which he obviously has. We saw that, 2 seasons ago. We saw it again last season, and this season he's been playing, moderately well. So, going to that earlier point, yes, the Stanley Cup experience and the ring means something. I still think it comes down to more variables than simply saying, I'm going to take the experience.
Well, can I also put it to you this way? The Seattle team, they do have to select at least 3 goalies in the expansion draft. I will say that they're only going to take one big ticket goaltender at the most. Correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, if they take more than one, there has to be something else coming along package wise. Like that would be them, building for the future, or potentially going full Vegas where you have, 4 billion draft picks and all the prospects you can't shake a stick at.
So with that sort of logic in my mind, and I just happen to believe that that's why that just reinforces the idea of why you need to protect Thatcher Demko over Jacob Markstrom, because, $6 to $7 million goalies, such as Jacob Markstrom, not saying that that's what his next contract looks like, but $6 to $7 million goalies like Jacob Markstrom, like Braden Holtby, like what we're seeing with Matt Murray, and what we did see with Marc-Andre Fleury, there are going to be a lot of those available at the expansion draft, but there are only going to be a handful of goaltenders that are young at a cap-friendly contract like Thatcher Demko available. So you got to take, those supply and demand basics into play here. If you're Jim Benning and you're taking that calculated risk of how can I keep both my guys, I think that's why it reinforces why you need to keep Thatcher Demko over Jacob Markstrom in expansion.
No, and that part I don't disagree at all. I just question the ring as being the end all and be all is all.
The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of future, Chris, Brogan Rafferty, he's getting a lot of hype, a lot of love down in the Utica Comets team.
Currently number 2 in points in Utica.
Yeah, behind former Vancouver Canuck legend Derek Pouliot. Let me ask you this. Is Brogan Rafferty for real as a prospect, or are these numbers just a nice little story?
I think Rafferty is doing his part to make the Vancouver Canucks pay attention. I mean, you look at his stat line here, 29 points this season in 31 games, so just under being a point a game player. Sorry. The bulk of those, however, are apples, and that's usually indicative of a puck-moving defenseman, which is not something the Vancouver Canucks really had until they had Quinn Hughes. So if Brogan Rafferty is the real deal, as he is starting to sort of, at least raise the banner to that question, it would be nice to have him, supplement a Quinn Hughes as a true puck-moving defenseman. Now, is he ready for prime time? I don't know. But I think his production and his performance so far is what introduces the question of what's the future for Troy from Richmond. Did the Vancouver Canucks bring back a Chris Tanev? It's fair to say that next season the Canucks training camp is going to be an interesting one. Like, is he next year's Adam Gaudette?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go off the rails a little bit here. Reed Boucher, dude's on fire.
No.
I'm not saying he comes up, but he is on fire down there in upstate New York.
Okay, so again, I'll bite first of all, and we'll go off the rails for a second. But Reed Boucher has played how many games with Vancouver Canucks and not shown anything?
Oh, I'm not suggesting he gets called up, but could it be that there is another team out there that's paying attention to the performance of a Reed Boucher and wonders, maybe we can make a deal? I mean, look, Sven Berche. I think we all suggest Sven deserves an opportunity here in Vancouver, and he hasn't quite got one just because of the number of players and the personnel that they have up here. Agreed?
Yep.
In Utica, Sven Berche has played, approximately 2/3 the number of games. He has about 2/3 the number of points. They have equal, point per game per stats, 1.42. But if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I kind of hope that maybe a Reed Boucher gets you interest. Whereas someone like Sven is saying, I want out of this team, which unfortunately, as a bargaining chip, never bodes well. Anyhow, I that's I just
okay.
float
So
around. I'm not saying he gets called up.
No, I know, but let me put it this way: if any team offered anything for Reed Boucher, I would take it.
Yes.
7th round pick, sure. 6th round pick, sure.
But what
prospect, sure.
What does Sven Berchi get? Like what value does Sven have?
Pick, 3rd round pick.
So do you feel Sven has better value than a Reed Boucher at this point?
He does, just because he's had the quote unquote more successful NHL career.
Sure. But sometimes players take a while to mature.
On the Boucher thing, like Boucher is the kind of player where at 5'10", whose foot speed is not that great, he's managing to get away with some of those weaknesses in the AHL. But anytime he comes up to the NHL, he has a hard time replicating that success.
Yeah, and
Boucher is to the Canucks in 2019 what Brandon Reed was, back in 2004.
Not Patrick White.
Patrick White was never even good at the AHL level, though.
No, it's too bad. Back on Rafferty, though, and he's a rookie defenseman in the A, and he's performing extremely well. Rafferty, if he doesn't get called up, I think at some point between now and the end of the season, it's more because the Vancouver Canucks want to keep him in Utica to give him game time, and to game time in a situation where the Utica Comets are looking to go in deep into the playoffs.
Would you rather call up Brogan Rafferty, or would you rather pick up or call up Guillaume Brisebois?
Well, if it's for a player to come up as insurance, Breeze.
Really?
And I'm not knocking Rafferty. It's just I think Rafferty benefits from playing.
Yeah, fair enough. No,
right? I mean, we could go even further down the list. I know in completely different situations, but there's another rookie defenseman down there in Utica named Olli Juolevi, who, yeah, exactly, performance-wise, I mean, he gets a point every 3 games. Barely that. Brogan Rafferty's producing, 3 times the pace than he is. But again, I'm not trying to compare apples to apples here. It's just it's amazing how far down Juolevi has fallen in regards to the pecking order. Last
note on Rafferty, though. I think a lot of general Canucks fans seem to think that Rafferty is the next up-and-coming defensive prospect. A lot of people also forget, though, Chris, he's 24. He's actually older than Guillaume Brisebois is. He's one of the oldest defenseman prospects on the Canucks team. A lot of people forget that Brogan Rafferty at the age of 24, he played, I believe, all 3 years in college before playing for the Vancouver Canucks last season for those last couple games. So at the age of 24, I mean, you got to temper expectations that there's not that much more room to grow, at least the runway is a little shorter than what people think it is.
Sure. He's just our version of Binnington.
Binnington was a Calder Trophy nominee, though.
Yeah, and he's like, 39 or something like that?
Yep.
Well, the one thing I do want to mention as well, I'm just sort of going down the list of famed Utica Comets, is that you have Josh Tevez down there. Just saying.
He's a project guy.
He's got 1 assist in 20 games, but he's got
he was free,
stat
right?
sheet.
I mean, he was free for the Vancouver Canucks. No one's going to argue a free prospect asset that may or may not turn into something.
No, but I mean, considering the relative fanfare when he was sort of uncovered, that's a project that they took a run at, and it may or may not pan out to be much more than some spare change in a hat.
Hey, look, Chris, every lottery ticket, for every one, there's maybe 1 in 6 that are actual winners.
This is true. And you would know this best. Strong company guy. Oh, well, why don't we take a quick break and start dropping the F word.
He liked to say the F word.
Well, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't.
You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
I'm going to ask you this, Matt. Who needs to step up most? Has to be Brock, right?
You say Brock. I actually say Bo.
Really? You don't think? I mean, okay, Bo Horvat, who can't score a goal at home.
Yeah, were you shocked by that stat, by the way?
I didn't believe it. I actually looked it up.
I was listening to the call. I was on my way home from a family dinner on Saturday night. I was listening to the call, and I was just floored when Corey Hirsch said that Horvat did not have a home ice goal all season. Like, we're almost halfway through the year, Chris, and he doesn't have one Rogers Arena goal?
Well, so I didn't believe it. I can understand it. I mean, first and foremost, when you're at home, your coach has, last change, and Bo Horvat and ultimately his line, I think, is the line that gets sent out probably situationally more than any other. Right? Like Petey and Besser, they would get sent out where I think there is the, offensive zone face-off, icing where you have a tired line on the ice still, like that type of situation. Whereas, the Horvat's line is going to get it sent out defensively. It might get sent out offensively where they need to, control the puck. Like there isn't a situation in my mind that Bo doesn't get sent out for. So being that he is being sent out for far more of these face-offs in his own end, it doesn't give him the best opportunity to go and then, pot a goal. But it is surprising that he does not have one on home ice. It is a shock. Blows my mind.
And I mean, I don't know. You look at that glaring statistic, Chris, and it's certainly disheartening. But it's a lot more than just the lack of home ice goals for me from Bo Horvat. It's the lack of goals in general, specifically those that are on even strength. I think last year Bo Horvat thrived, and this was covered in The Athletic as well, by the way. Bo Horvat thrived in getting those tough defensive matchups. But this year, he seems to be struggling to keep his head above water a little bit in those matchups. He's getting paired still against some of the best opposition in the league, but hasn't really produced much at even strength as a result.
No, and in fact, if you go to that much beloved stat plus minus, he currently leads the team with a -12.
Yeah, I mean, Horvat's got to step up more in 2020 if this team has any aspirations of making the playoffs, in my mind. But you said Brock Besser.
Yeah, and okay, the reason I say Brock, it's you can see that Brock still has the game, but there are times where both he and Petey seem to be trapped into the no, you do it. They're both wanting to be Henrik Sedin.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, Petey occasionally remembers he's Petey and will take those shots. But we are starting to see the two of them almost try to get that extra pass in. And it is frustrating because Brock has this elusive wrist shot that he doesn't use to his advantage. I also feel that if he were to then step up his game, whether or not Bo Horvat conversationally needs to score more for the Vancouver Canucks matters very little, because if you're getting that much production, from Petey and Brock, they're better for it. I'm just looking at goals right now. I mean, Petey has 17, Brock has 13. You've got Miller, they're line at 14. So that line is producing the bulk of the Vancouver Canucks offense. Which forward has the number 4 spot with goals?
Say that one more time. Say the list.
Okay, so currently you have Petey with 17, JT Miller with 14, Brock Besser with 13. Who is the number 4 forward with goals right now in the Vancouver Canucks?
It's got to be a classic Chris curveball here. It's not Horvat, though, is it?
No, it's not Horvat. It is not Horvat.
It's Jake.
Jake Virtanen with 10. Horvat's got 9. In fact, Horvat's tied with Pearson for 9 goals.
See, this is the other thing that's alarming to me about Bo Horvat. You mentioned he has 9 goals this year.
Yes.
A third of them came in one game against Detroit, that hat-trick game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not for nothing, but that's kind of unsettling if you take that game away from Bo, and I'm not trying to, but 6 goals in 36 games? That doesn't cut it.
No. I'm just actually looking at the percentages here. Shot percentage. Bo Horvat needs 10 shots before he can get a goal, it seems. You've got Petey at 17.2. But Adam Gaudette, He scores 1 out of every 5 shots. He has a 20.6% shot percentage. I mean, heck, if we go to Rooster, although much smaller sample size, Rooster scores more than a quarter of the time he takes a shot, 28.6.
Wow.
I mean, again, these are just metrics. They're not comparable to opportunity or ice time, but just an interesting side note. So back to my point of Besser, I just feel that, Besser is maybe not taking the shots he needs to. It's back to that sort of Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. All Brock needs to do is take more of them.
His shot does seem to lack the same zip that it used to, though, as well.
Okay, maybe, but I actually wonder if it's just because we haven't seen it as much as we previously had.
It's true. I mean, we could stand to see it a little bit more, but I mean, he's had a history of wrist injuries as well. I'm not sure if that has something to do with it, but
yeah. Well, the other thing that I wanted to get to before we look to wrap things up, Levo, he is done for 2 to 3 with a cracked knee.
That is, by the way, not the injury I thought he would have had.
No? Well, okay, what did you think he would have had?
I mean, I thought it was a knee, but this is specifically a fractured kneecap.
Yes, you thought like ligament?
Yeah, I thought it was more ligament structural damage.
Well, you watch him go off the ice. It's clearly that there was an issue. I mean, he was steamed. The cracked kneecap part does blow my mind. Like I would.
You don't
think
see those injuries very often, I think, is what I'm trying to say as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends. Like his knee was bent, knee was first point of contact. Like I'm not saying ligament wouldn't be first to mind, but if it was a ligament, he probably wouldn't have been getting up off his and off the ice in his own steam. Not to suggest that a kneecap makes it any better. Like that just shocks me that his kneecap's busted up and he's skating off. The fact that, one, there was no call, and then no supplemental discipline. How does that even happen? I know we're talking about the NHL Wheel of Justice here, but it wasn't like it did not look like a hockey play.
No, I mean it was clearly in the numbers too.
Like I was talking to a friend of mine who old school say, oh no, players need to protect themselves. I'm like, I don't disagree, but like it is possible for the intent of a hockey play to be that, but just because you intended to doesn't make doing something that wasn't good. I can't speak from the hockey perspective, but like I used to hear it when I refereed soccer all the time. Players say, oh, I was going for the ball. And going for the ball does not make what you just did right. Like I had one player go through another, pretty much, I think broke the guy's leg. I don't know. But to say, oh, I was going for the ball, allowing for that play to happen is not acceptable. You went through the guy's legs, you took him out. It's considered a foul in soccer. And ultimately, as you pointed out, you got Levo in the numbers. So the fact that, Holden got nothing just blows my mind. But there are those who are in Discord who are probably not too upset that Levo isn't in the lineup, even though he was starting to produce. I mean, he was making the conversation difficult to keep him in.
Yep, fair enough. He was, at least an effective second, third line winger.
Yeah, agreed. So as we wrap up this special holiday episode, you got any tidings and joy to share with our listeners there, Matt?
I'm not sure. Looking forward to the World Junior Championships, Chris, which is coming up. And fortunately, we didn't get to talk about that too much, but all eyes are going to be on Niels Hoglander and Vasily Podkolzin from the Vancouver Canucks perspective. Those guys are certainly going to be playing major roles for Sweden and Russia, respectively. So eyes on that one for sure in the next couple weeks.
As for me, I do wish everyone well. I mean, thank you for listening to us again over the course of the 2019 year. And this has been a different year for us as we had been recording throughout the off season, albeit on a slightly reduced pace. And for continuing to tune in each and every week as we record a new episode. We may not have an episode next week. As we sort of mentioned at the top, this is a highly unusual sort of season for us where the holidays fall in such a way that we would normally record. So you will have to stay tuned. And the best way to stay tuned as to whether or not there will be a new episode is to join our Discord. Discord is where all the greatest conversations take place. Gate 16 is always hopping. You've got the Fire Travis Green crowd, the You Guys Are Crazy crowd. You've got the Josh Levo doesn't serve me in lineup crowd. You've got the crowd who's, well, there's all sorts of crowds, but it's no different than Canucks Twitter. It's just a nicer group of people in my mind.
At least united by the fact that we're all Canucks fans.
It's true. But to join Discord, it's bit.ly/C4 Discord, C4 Discord, all caps, and bit.ly. But on behalf of Matt, Anna, and Adam, again, I wish you and your family a happy holidays, be it Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is that you may celebrate at this time of year. I hope that you can spend time with Festivus for the rest of us. But I hope you get to spend time with your family, with your friends, maybe hanging out with us in Gate 16 and the C4 Discord as well. Whether it be taking in the World Junior Hockey Tournament, the Vancouver Canucks game against the LA Kings this weekend, or potentially chowing down on some phenomenal food for the holidays. On one final note, if you are looking for us and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, we're on every major podcast platform out there. You can also find us at c4podcast.com if you happen to be tuning in and curious as to where we might live on the internet. Twitter, it's twitter.com/the C4podcast and facebook.com/C4podcast. So I am Chris at Lightforce, signing off for Matt at MattLee_61, Anna at A4603, and Adam at AdamFOC, and wishing you all a very happy holidays. We're out.